For my piece, for my final project for music theory, I picked Segura Ele, written by Pisangina in 1930 in Brazil. This piece is an example of choro music, which was a pop. Choro literally meaning in Portuguese to cry or lament, which is ironic considering it is a genre that is mostly characterized by having upbeat and sort of happy sounds and rhythms. This piece uses a combination of rhythm, chord progression, cadences, motive, and phrase structure, all to elicit this feeling of young love, which is hinted at by the title, Segura Ele, meaning hold him in Portuguese. In this piece, there are 4 instruments. There's a trumpet, a clarinet, a guitar, and a pandeiro, which is like a large tambourine. It's more resonant, and it's a staple of choro music. The trumpet and the clarinet function melodically. They play the melody of the piece almost the entire time. And they both play like this lead voice. The guitar also shares some melodic functions. The 7-string guitar, which is a staple of choro music. However, the guitar functions more primarily harmonically, in that it outlines the chords and of the song, and but it also functions rhythmically, and it has a little bit of a bass function in that it just plays the lowest notes of the piece a lot of the time. And then the tambourine functions rhythmically. There are moments where it kind of echoes the melody rhythmically, but it's still primarily it's a rhythmic function, and it's intertwined with the guitar for the most of the piece. Rhythm. The piece, almost all of the piece, the tambourine is playing a habanera rhythm, which is it was very popular in Latin music at this time and in general, and it's the liveliness of this rhythm combined with the very fast tempo creates sort of an engine that drives the momentum of the piece. However, it's not always this rhythm is broken several times. The tambourine is often echoing the melody rhythmically, or it's doing this habanera rhythm, but then it also breaks around measure 37, and it plays these like straight eighth notes for one measure, and then into a like half as slow habanera rhythm. And you can more clearly hear the habanera rhythm because it's so fast most of the time that it's almost obscured a little bit. Here is me clapping the habanera rhythm. And here is me clapping the part where it breaks at measure 37. Phrase structure. This piece has there is a period at the beginning, and this period is repeated 3 times throughout the piece, and it has a strong basic idea and contrasting idea, and it has an antecedent that ends in a half cadence. The basic idea and the contrasting idea are restated, and then it ends in a PAC, a perfect authentic cadence. What's interesting is on like a wider sort of scale, the structure of this piece is not dissimilar to pop music, in that you can compare the period of the piece to like a chorus, in that it's restated 3 times, and then in between it you've got sort of like a verse section, a bridge section, and then these solos where all of the instruments play by themselves for the most part, and then the guitar and the tambourine do this like little echoey sort of back and forth, and So in this period, you've got um, you've got in the first two measures, you've got a tonic, a dominant seventh, and then a tonic chord. And then what's interesting is this isn't necessarily characteristic of periods, but you've got this like smaller sort of motif in the basic idea that's transposed down in the second half. And then you've got the contrasting idea with the D minor chord or the 2 chord, and then that ends in a half cadence with the G, D7, G7 progression. And what's interesting here is in that half cadence you've got a dominant 7 D chord, which is not in the key of C major. You could say it's like borrowed, or it's just not in the key, and so, but it still functions. It still has a predominant function in the cadence, in that it leads into the dominant chord, which is then sustained. And then in the second half in the consequent, after the half cadence, you've got the basic idea restated again, but this time there's some chromaticism. And then instead of having the C, G7, C progression, you've got a C, B flat 7, A7 progression, which is tonic, and then the 7 chord, it still functions dominantly, but it is just different. It's not the G7 chord, and so it builds more tension in this restating and changing of the basic idea. And then this all leads back into a perfect authentic cadence with the D7, the G, and the C. Anyways, here is what the antecedent sounds like, played on my guitar, and just the chords. And you can sort of hear the half cadence towards the ends there. And then here is me playing what the end of the antecedent would sound like if it was a perfect authentic cadence instead of a half cadence. And then here is me playing the consequent at the end of the period. And you can hear the perfect authentic cadence. The ending. The end of the piece is characterized by it being very abrupt and sort of quiet dynamically to what comes before, and also the whole piece in general. It kind of, you could say, it kind of fizzles out. It's one measure, and it has this buildup that is repeated. That is like a motif that goes throughout the piece, and it usually builds up to the period that we just looked at. And so the ending is this one measure. It's these descending diatonic notes starting and ending on the tonic, and it's very quiet compared to the rest of the piece. And so I took this as being like, if the piece is the celebration of love, you wouldn't want it to end necessarily on like a big dramatic note, because that seems final in a way that this piece isn't. It's like the beginning of like a love story. It's the beginning of it, and so by ending it abruptly, it sort of leaves the door open, and in that way, it's not final. There's more to come, and here's what that sounds like.